Have you or someone you love gotten stuck trying to self-help your way out of anxiety or out of trauma? I've got good news and bad news. The good news is there's hope for your anxiety and we can resolve trauma, that God's made provision for that in your nervous system. The bad news is you can't do it on your own. Self-help, books, courses, podcasts, resources are tremendously valuable. But it's not actually sufficient on its own to address the things that drive anxiety. But what keeps us from experiencing the transformation?
We learn that these things that we face are common to the human experience, that it's not us. We're not uniquely bad, uniquely broken, uniquely weak. That's just being a human, but we don't know that if we don't talk to safe people about these things. It's wildly powerful.
The grace and the truth that we received from those life-giving experiences filled in gaps for us and gave us capacities that we didn't previously have. Stay tuned. This episode's for you. Welcome, and thank you for being here. I'm Josh Spurlock. I'm a licensed professional counselor with a degree in biblical languages. I also developed a model of therapy called Neuroscience-Informed Christian Counseling and founded the faith-based therapy company, My Counselor Online. Every month, my team and I help thousands of people mature into their true self and experience true happiness. We have a 93% success rate and 4.8 stars on Trustpilot. It just works. And in this podcast, we share the secrets we've learned to true happiness, the abundant life that Jesus spoke of in John 10:10. So thanks for joining us. Let's learn something together. Hey friend, have you or someone you love gotten stuck trying to self-help your way out of anxiety or out of trauma? It's super frustrating, but you're also not alone. Like many people experience anxiety. Many people have experienced trauma. We're all trying to figure out how to work our way out of that. And we all run into the same wall, that it's impossible to do on our own. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible to do. In this episode of the Road to Happiness podcast, we're continuing our series on anxiety. And here we're going to unpack why self-help alone can't resolve anxiety and undo trauma. We're going to see what it is that keeps us from being able to resolve the anxiety and trauma. What are the blocks that get in the way of us? And then what are the practical steps that we can do to actually address anxiety, address trauma? What's the good news? This is a hopeful episode, and we're excited to dive in. I'm joined by my lovely co-host and wife, Cassie Spurlock, who brings the fun to this show. I bring the nerdy neuroscience and
I'm really
theology.
trying to behave myself over here already.
Cassie's background isn't in biblical studies and it's not in neuroscience. It's in a whole lot of fun and really taking and making this stuff the really practical to you, right? So glad that you're here. Enjoy doing this with you.
Yeah, team.
Yeah. We like to interpret neuroscience on this show through the lens of Scripture because we believe that the author of Scripture and the designer of a nervous system are one and the same, Jesus. And so we can reliably look to the Scriptures to understand how to apply the neuroscience in practical living. And we can look to the neuroscience to help us expand and better understand the Scriptures and what Jesus had in mind when he shared it. So I want to start with looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. It says, 2 people can accomplish more than twice as much as one. They get a better return for their labor. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But people who are alone, when they fall, are in real trouble. And on a cold night, 2 under the same blanket can gain warmth from each other. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So it's wisdom literature, book of Ecclesiastes, highlighting that we weren't designed to do life in isolation. And there are things that we just can't accomplish. Ecclesiastes says, woe is the man that falls in a hole traveling alone. Who can help him out? Right? That we get stuck when we are alone with the struggles and the challenges that face this life. That's the message of lots of passages in the scripture and captured well there in Ecclesiastes. Like self-help books, courses, podcasts, resources are tremendously valuable. Like you're listening to one, you're watching one right now. And we wouldn't be doing this if we thought it was a waste of time. But it's not actually sufficient. It's not that it's not valuable, it's not sufficient on its own to address the things that drive anxiety and the things that are happen in our nervous system when we experience traumatic experiences in life, which when triggered, drive anxiety and kind of create anxiety. Like neurologically, our body can't rewire the things that it needs to in order to address that. The scriptures talk about the two different, it talks about renewing our mind and being transformed through the renewing of our mind. And there's really two pathways. There's two ways or kinds of renewing our mind that we experience. There is new learning that lays down new neural pathways in our brain. And then there's transformation of existing neural pathways.
So you're talking about healing wounds and filling in gaps in Nick language.
Yeah, so you use what's called memory reconsolidation is the scientific terminology for transforming existing learning that maybe isn't truthful, right? That we have experiences of life that communicate messages to us that are inconsistent with the way God sees the world, inconsistent with the way he sees us, inconsistent with our true self. And they contribute those false learnings, kind of, which are not false because they don't reflect the reality of our time, but because they're incomplete. Right?
Sometimes they don't even reflect the reality. Like there has been learnings in my life and heart that I'm like, I suck at this. And you're like, you don't suck at this. Like from an outsider's perspective, you're actually very competent and good at this.
Yeah, there's nuances in it though, right? Because sometimes we do suck at something, right? And so the devil's in the details, as it were. The devil kind of works in the nuances of things, But being ignorant about something, not being skillful about something, doesn't mean that you suck as a human being.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're bad.
Right. And so there's nuance in that. It's actually, we may have learned a thing that maybe is true. Maybe we aren't good at this, that. But on the other hand, they further inferred the thing that's maybe not true within the mix is because we're not good at this, that it then means we've lacked value as a person and as a human.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes attached to something that is true, then maybe it is true that we had somebody important to us or an experience with somebody important in our life who thought poorly of us, that didn't see value in us, didn't respect us, right? And it's true that they believed those things about us.
Yeah.
But those things doesn't mean that because they believe that doesn't mean that those things are actually true of us.
Yeah. Their personal brand of truth isn't God's truth about us and isn't our truth.
Yeah. Their opinion, their perspective isn't necessarily aligned with God's opinion or perspective. But when we're young, in particular, this frontal cortex, this front part of our brain up here, isn't fully developed. And so our ability to kind of analyze what's being downloaded into us is very limited. And we're very dependent on the grown-ups in our life to interpret those things and to filter those things and to organize our experience in order to help them make sense to us. And so these partial truths and these untruths all get kind of jumbled together and recorded in our nervous system in a way that shapes the way we experience the present, how we feel about ourselves, how we think about God, how we think about the world. We talk about 5 different developmental domains where we have experiences in each of those domains that then shape how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others, how we relate to God. All of those represent really unconscious learning, right? That they're things that we believe about ourselves, but we don't have language or a narrative or a story around those beliefs. So we can believe things about ourselves and we don't even realize that we believe those things. You know, Proverbs talks about the heart of a man being a deep well, and a wise person draws out those depths.
Yeah.
It's like you're looking down into a deep well and you can't see the bottom of it. You can't see what's down there. But wise counsel helps bring those things up in a way that helps us have awareness around them. And so self-help resources like this can help us gain new knowledge, new information. And while all knowledge and information is better learned through human experiences, you know, preferably, the information can download through a human experience by proxy, right? It's like when you read a person's writings, person's books, or here you're consuming an audio podcast or a video podcast, and you're learning from people by proxy of this intermediary of the medium through which that you're learning it from. And so it's very helpful and useful for that one kind of learning. But what this isn't very helpful or useful for is transforming things that you have learned in your story from your past that oftentimes are unconscious. Like you don't even know that you hold these beliefs because they were installed in you before this front part of your brain where conscious awareness and language all come together and filter experience. So these early formative experiences, they are untouched by new learning. The new things that you learn from a podcast like this, or from reading a book, or from listening to a sermon, or from reading the Bible, while all of that is useful and helpful, it doesn't change the things that you learned kind of prior to that information. And what is required for those things to change is that missing piece that we're going to talk about, right? But what keeps us from experiencing the transformation? You know, what are the things that get in the way and the blocks that prevent us from accessing it? So they come by way of human experiences, right? So self-help brings information, but there's a relational encounter that has to take place in order for us to experience transformation. What are the blocks? What are the things that get in the way for us?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is this idea that I'm not in bad enough shape that I really need to, like, I don't want to bother anybody with this. Like, this is probably not that big of a deal. And if I just keep grinding, I'll handle it. Eventually it will work itself out. It doesn't really work like that, but like the stimulus might go away, so we're not as aware of it, or we might be able to regulate ourselves enough that it's not as blaring, but it doesn't just go away. So I think about that. I especially think for people that are so used to helping others and pouring out to others that they're like the last ones that are like, okay, It's okay for me to not be on fire before I reach out for help or comfort or clarity or just to brain dump, to blah, 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 with my friend. You know, your friends and your safe people in your life want to be that for you too. Like you want to be that for people and you are, but other people want to be that for you too. And you need that. You actually need that. It's not, you're not failing. You're not bad. You're not less than. If you're a leader, like we lead by example. We want our people to be vulnerable. We want our people to grow. We have to do it.
Yeah, so there's several things that you said there that I just want to slow down and unpack each one, because there's, multiple things that you named that become obstacles for us. Sometimes there's this piece of, it's not that bad. And it's the good that keeps us from the great that God wants us to experience, right? That, we accept the good or not so bad that we have because we know it's familiar.
Yes.
And we can just continue on in it without the risk of something new or different that's vulnerable, maybe scary, that involves, uncharted territory for us.
Yeah.
And so we would, rather stick with the not great, but known.
Yeah.
And there's some safety and comfort there, than to lean into unknown territory that actually is the gateway and pathway for us to experience the fullness of life that God desires for us and has for us. And so there's that piece. Like, it's not that bad, maybe not good.
Yeah.
Certainly not as good as it could be.
Yeah.
That God has more and wants more for us. But we, settle for the status quo because it feels more familiar and safe. So there's that component that becomes a block or obstacle. Sometimes there's a not feeling worthy, and that we can be there for others and bear others' burdens, but we shouldn't be a burden to others.
Yeah.
We don't want to be an inconvenience to others. And so there's a tendency to feel like maybe we're not worthy of other people's effort or time or energy, or their kind of putting them out in some way.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about, like, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about my kids. Like, they come in from school, one of them's having a hard day. I can just see it in their face. They haven't said anything. They don't look like they're on fire. They don't look like they have something that has tragically happened, but I am their mom and I can notice what's going on with them. And I care about checking in with them and inviting them to share their small thing that's bothering them, because I love them, because I care about them, because I want their wholeness, the best version, the most peaceful, joyful, happy version of them. And I want to help them fill in the gaps to be able to get to that from wherever they are now. And I think sometimes we can forget, like, God cares about us in the same way that we care for that. Like, He values us that much that He wants to transform good into great in our lives.
Yeah. His heart is for us of that. For Peter tells us of that, that he invites us to cast our cares on him because he cares for us, right? That he wants for us to bring those things to him, and that he wants us to bring it to one another.
Yeah.
And how we have those experiences. But what gets in the way is that feeling of unworthiness.
Yes.
That's there. And sometimes shame.
Yeah.
We have this belief that somehow we're not supposed to struggle, or that if we love Jesus enough
Oh my
that we
gosh.
won't experience anxiety or that we won't have the impact of trauma in our story. And so
Yeah.
maybe it's a lack of faith of some sort, or a personal failure
Yeah.
on our part, that we would need help or need to reach out. And so we'd rather lean into self-help resources, where we don't have to ask anybody else for help. We don't have to expose what we believe to be
Oh
the
man.
evidence of our failure or the proof of our not good enoughness, or and have others see that and be burdened by that.
In those moments, I like to remind myself that Jesus in the garden, when he was going to pray before the Father, it invited his friends to come. Please come be with me. Don't let me be alone with this. I'm like, if Jesus needed his people, if he needed his friends, first of all, there's no shame in it. Second of all, we're not getting around it. Like, there is no way that if Jesus, A, needed them, and B, showed us that as an example, that that's not part of his path and plan for our lives. And I think one of the hard pieces about what you're sharing is the way that we learn our value is by the life-giving experiences that we can only have with other people. So it's really hard. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of vulnerability, because when we feel like we're not worthy, we begin to feel worthy because we look in somebody else's face that says, "Hey, it's okay that you're going through that. I've been through that." Or, "I would feel the same way if I was in your situation." And that has personally been so impactful for me when I would share something that felt very shameful and very embarrassing, small or large. And the people surrounding me that I was sharing it with, the safe people in my life, would say, "That makes so much sense. That totally makes sense. I have felt that way, or I would feel that way." We learn that these things that we face are common to the human experience, that it's not us. We're not uniquely bad, uniquely broken, uniquely weak. That's just being a human. But we don't know that if we don't talk to safe people about these things. We think we are uniquely messed up and struggling. And when we have safe people in our life, we find out, oh, this is really still hard, but like, you get that it's hard too. So we can talk about it now when it's hard, because we both know that each other knows that this sucks and it's hard. It's wildly powerful.
We have a tendency to be self-reliant.
Yeah, well, and I think culturally, it's like, figure it out. You got this. You can't depend on anybody. It's all you. Grind, make it happen, etc. That's just not a biblical framework at all.
It's one of the shadow sides of the individualistic Western culture that we live in. There's maybe a lot of good things that are a part of our culture and our mindset, but one of the downsides of it is this focus on self-reliance versus community
Yeah.
and our need for one another. And that self-reliance can lead us to, again, look to and try to rely on self-help methods
Yeah.
to the neglect of the communal components that are necessary for healing and change and transformation. And so that gets in our way. And we reach for a variety of different kinds of fake joy, what we call fake joy. And that can show up, again, for all the reasons that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Could show up because of shame, in the sense that we feel like we're not supposed to struggle. We're not. So that means there's something uniquely broken or wrong, fundamentally damaged about us, that we would be needy or have need for other people.
Or inconvenience people. Like, just thinking this morning about how one of my kids lost his wallet, and he was like, oh, I hate that it inconveniences you and dad because you guys are going to have to take me and help me get another driver's license. And I was just like, hey, people inconvenience people. Like that is actually just a part of being human. It's inconvenient when I get sick and I need you to go to the store and get stuff for me. It's inconvenient when I need to process something emotionally and you had other plans, but you're going to be here for me. Like friendships and real relationships, they're inconvenient. They cost us something, but the cost is like what God calls us to as Christians. Like it does cost us something, but it also gives us something deep and rich as we bear each other's burdens.
Yeah, love is inconvenient. But we reach for this fake joy, and what we mean by fake joy is both the avoidance, where with ourself we kind of pretend like everything's okay. With others, we pretend like everything's okay. We put on the mask of, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine.
How are you blessed?
Right?
So blessed.
Right?
That's true. And
yeah, and it's spiritual bypass when we use those truths to cover over and hide the ways in which we're struggling and the ways in which things are not okay. Or the fake joy that we use to distract ourselves from the pain that we're experiencing. Right? Whether that's doom scrolling on the phone, whether that's food, whether that's alcohol, whether that's gambling. Like it can show up in so many different ways, and many of which are not inherently evil, but they are so destructive when they serve the role in our life of deflecting from and avoiding the pain that's trying to tell us that we need help, or they cause us to hide the pain that we're experiencing from the people that God has put in our life that would be a part of that solution. And so fake joy becomes an obstacle and one of the reasons that we don't get help. Sometimes we have a lack of iron sharpening friends in our life. We have a lack of sages in our life. We talk a lot about how every one of us needs iron sharpeners and sages in our life. And we define iron sharpeners as these folks that are growth-oriented, so not just any peer, but a growth-oriented peer, that is those that are on their own journey towards healing and maturing into their true self, that God, the person whom God designed them to be, and they're actively leaning into the experiences of their life that help them mature in those direction, like those kinds of friends that then you can also lean into. Or the sages, that is, people who are a little bit more mature than you in some area of life, that can be a voice of truth and grace into your life that helps you move along that journey because they're a little more mature in one domain or more of life. Well, if you don't have those people in your life, then you can't lean into those relationships.
yeah.
Like if you don't have those friendships with those iron sharpeners, if you haven't sought out and developed sage relationships in your life, then that becomes a block for you. And you can't access what you don't have that's there. And it takes effort and energy and intentionality to develop friendships with iron sharpeners, to develop relationships with sages, whether that's through like a podcast like this, and we can serve as a form of sage to you as we're sharing information that is helpful and relevant to your world and your life. That's pastors, disciplers in your life, from your local church, small group leaders, participating in Bible study leaders. So you're participating in a Bible study and a Bible study leader. Somebody maybe is being a sage to you. Maybe it's a coaching or a counseling relationship where you engage with a coach, a spiritual director, or a counselor to be a part of your journey and speaking into your life in those domains. Like we have to have those kinds of relationships. If we don't have them, it becomes a block for us. Sometimes there's just fear or pride. Right? We can be prideful.
Sure.
We can refuse to be vulnerable. Sometimes we have those people in our life and we don't let them in.
We're thinking of somebody right now and we're like, I should reach out, but I don't want to. I don't want to.
Yeah, either because of fear, that's related to shame, that I'll be rejected, they won't understand, they'll look down upon me, they'll be frustrated with me that I'm bothering them.
Yeah.
Or pride, in this piece of I'll look bad. They'll think less of me. They won't think I have it all together. And I want them to think I have it all together. And so that pride, that arrogance, and it gets in the way of us getting help because we don't want our reputation or our image going to be broken.
Yeah. And none of us have it all together. None of us have it all together. Not one person, not the person you're thinking of. I'm sure they're wise and great. They also don't have it all together. We don't have it all together. That's just the reality. But it can be so hard and scary to open up and share what we don't have all together. And we all have areas that we feel vulnerable and protective about not having it all together.
Yeah. And so, we say all that to address the fear that's there, but we also say to address the pride that's there also. Like, don't be foolish. Don't let your fear of your image somehow being tarnished keep you stuck. Like, there is healing and hope on the other side of humility and humbling yourself and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. But there is no healing and there is no hope if you stay stuck in pride and refuse to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to be known and to be seen and others to join with you in it. You will stay stuck forever. That by design, it is neurologically impossible for you to overcome the challenges that lay before you to growing and maturing into the fullness who God created you to be and experiencing the fullness of life that He has for you in isolation. You just can't. You'll never get there. And so if you're a person that notice your fear of what others are going to think about you or your image, and you got a reputation uphold, and they're suddenly going to realize that you're imperfect, newsflash, they already know it, right? Then, I just want to encourage you to lean into the humility and allow the grace that God has placed around you and in your life to come into your life. You're keeping it out. You're blocking out the very grace of God that He wants to use to bring healing and transformation to you. Allow that grace in. Take the risk. Allow the people that God has put in your life to be the conduits of His grace into your life that He wants them to be. So those are the blocks. There's probably others, but as a counselor who's sat with lots of different people and heard lots of different stories, those are really the common blocks that I hear and that I see that get in the way and prevent people from being able to really experience the transformation that they need. So what is this transformation that we need? What is it that we can't get from a self-help resource that we need in order to fully mature, to heal, and fully become who it is that God's created us to be? I see that hand.
We need life-giving experiences.
Yeah, we do. We need life-giving experiences. What is a life-giving experience?
In the most basic form, not to use a definition to define a word, but it's just an experience that gives us life, that helps us more fully understand who God is, understand who we are in relationship to God, understand the next stage of maturity for ourselves, and how God wants to grow us and have us show up in the world. And it's not I don't know, I'm always like careful, I think, about this is because God gave us free will and he wants us to live this beautiful, flourishing life. And it's not like, in my mind, it's not like, okay, here's the pathway I set you on. No, 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 no. It's like, I have this beautiful, like, options for you, things you might like, things I wired into you that I want for you to enjoy for you. Not just because it brings me joy, but I wired you for these things to bring you joy, and it will bring me joy by watching it bring you joy. Like it's so much more robust and delightful than we often give it credit for.
Yeah, they're life-giving experiences are these experiences of grace and truth that God wants to use to mature and develop us into who it is that He's created us to be. You know, the scriptures talk about God is love, and that Christ's love transforms us. John tells us that God came in the flesh as Christ dwelt amongst us, and that He was full of grace and truth. That the experiences of love that we have with one another are experiences of grace and of truth, of charis and aletheia. We have a daughter named Aletheia. Her name is Aletheia Grace. And then it's because her dad has a degree in biblical languages and is nerdy like that. But Grace and Truth is her name.
I feel like maybe we shouldn't have named her Truth.
She's growing into it. She's growing into the grace part of it. She'll get there. But life-giving experiences are these experiences of love, these experiences of grace and truth that fill in gaps for us. So what's a gap? A gap is something that we needed to have happen that didn't happen in our developmental periods. Something that has not yet happened that we need to happen in order for us to mature in some aspect of who we are. And so, what are we talking about there? Well, maybe, in our connection domain, that's one of the 5 developmental domains that in connection specifically gives us the capacity to relate in healthy ways with other humans, right? It gives us the ability to give and receive love. And so maybe we haven't had experiences where we have been able to be imperfect and still accepted and received with grace. Maybe we grew up in a context where imperfection was dealt with harshly, and then we were shamed around our imperfection. And we kind of have this expectation of folks that if I bring myself in imperfection, I'm going to be dealt with harshly. I'm going to be shamed. I'm going to be rejected. And we're really talking about a combination of wounds and gaps there. The wounding part is when I brought my imperfection and I was met with something that should not have happened. That instead of experiencing grace, instead of experiencing acceptance and love in the face of my imperfection, I experienced something painful: rejection, abandonment, shame, disapproval, right? And that left a wound in that connection domain. But I also have this gap because even if nothing traumatic happened in terms of rejecting, but I just had an absence of life-giving experiences of folks receiving me in spite of my imperfection, I have no internal working model for understanding what that looks like, either for me to have that sort of compassion towards myself and grace towards myself, or for me to model it with others. And so there's just a gap because I haven't had those experiences. I don't even know what it looks like. I don't have a box to put that in because of the void that exists from not having those experiences in my life. And so to really practical things like knowing how to resolve conflict in relationship. And in my marriage, one of the struggles that you and I had early on was that we didn't have parents that were good at conflict resolution and modeling that for us. And so we didn't come into marriage with those tools in our toolbox. We had gaps. We had gaps in our relational skills toolbox. And that wasn't my fault and it wasn't your fault. Our parents didn't have it to give, so they didn't pass it on to us. And we came into marriage not having it. We came into marriage with those gaps. And that was costly for us. It created problems in our dynamic because everybody has conflict.
Yeah, it did.
Right. And so it's just an example of what are gaps. When we say that there are gaps, it means in some domain of our life, we have not yet had the experiences that we need. And so a life-giving experience that you and I have been able to have is that we have been able to have mentor couples in our life and people whom we observed navigate conflict differently. In that observation, we learned experientially from observing it happen a different way of doing things. We've gotten marriage therapy, and we have had a sage in our life who has some more maturity in relational skills than we had at the time.
Yeah.
Coach us through how to have a different kind of interaction with each other. And that coaching filled in a gap for us.
Yeah.
It was a life-giving experience for us.
Oh my gosh, did that coaching make such a difference for us? Not just between us, but for every relationship in our life, actually.
Right. The grace and the truth that we received from those life-giving experiences filled in gaps for us and gave us capacities that we didn't previously have. Right? So a life-giving experience is an encounter of love that brings grace and truth into our situation in a way that can fill in a gap for us. Or it can heal a wound for us. Right?
Yeah.
It's a life-giving experience of love, of grace and truth that can transform some of that learning that we talked about before. That unconscious, early formative learnings that we don't even necessarily have language around or conscious remembrance of the experiences that taught us these things. But nevertheless, they're in our heart. They shape the way we see ourselves, the way we experience the world, how we experience God, how we experience other people, how we interpret the events of our life. So they have tremendous influence on us, but they have all sorts of distortion in them. Things that were stored in our nervous system as trauma because we lacked the regulation and organization at the time to be able to process them and learn from them and store them in a normal, healthy, wisdom-producing way within our life. Those unresolved traumas, they need to be met with life-giving experiences, which happen through these encounters of love, where somebody is with us, bearing those burdens with us in a way that regulates our nervous system by lending their regulated nervous system to us, and our body is able to synchronize with theirs and stay regulated and stay present with our experience. That while we have come online and emotionally feel in our body the learnings from that previous experience, and then have that met in the present with a mismatching experience of truth.
Yeah.
Right? That there's something untruthful about that experience, or so there's a lie that we've learned from that experience that has become part of our identity.
Yeah.
That when we, in a regulated space, we have a chance to reorganize that and have someone who's a little more mature than us in that domain can speak truth into that space, and it rewires that learning. That transformation is one of the forms of renewing our mind that Romans talks about. That we can renew our mind through the learning of things that we didn't know before that fill in gaps for us.
Yeah.
Just super valuable and
Yeah.
good. We have life-giving experiences. I hope you're having a life-giving experience as you listen to this and watch this. I hope there's some new truth that you didn't know before that's making its way into your heart and giving you hope for the life that God has for you and wants for you, right? Like this can be a life-giving experience that you're having with sages that you've invited in your life and to speak to these things to be able to help you in your journey. But then there are life-giving experiences where I'm not able to regulate your nervous system and help discern with you the mismatching experience that you need to have to reorganize a wound from your story in this one-directional context that we're in right now. I wish I could. If I could find out a way to do that and make it more accessible to you, I'd be all over that. But today, we really have to be with another human. And it's an interactive experience to walk through that transformation, that kind, the sciences call it memory reconsolidation, that memory reconsolidation experience that is a life-giving experience is an interactive one between two nervous systems that takes place. And so that's why it can't happen through self-help methods alone. That's why it can't happen in isolation, because neurologically it requires that interactive experience between two nervous systems.
Can I tell you about one of my favorite life-giving experiences that I ever had? Okay, I have this friend. His name's Scott. We went on this work trip, and there was just like, he's a very unique person, and there was just these weird vibes, okay? It was a complicated work trip, and I was just sensing, paying attention to everybody's responses in the space, and I was just feeling like he didn't like me. So I was going to be brave and go tell him, hey, it feels like you don't like me. I'm just wondering if that's true. Like, just have a conversation about it. I was noticing what was happening in my body. I was going to name it with Scott. Okay. So I went up to Scott. I grabbed him alone as he was walking outside, and I was like, can I tell you this? I am feeling like you don't like me. And what I expected Scott to say was, oh no, I like you. But what Scott, in his great wisdom and his complete regulation, and me and my dysregulation from everybody else being, it was a complicated trip, like I said. But I was just allowing myself to be vulnerable. Like, I know that there was a part of me that needed to be liked, that it was important for me to be liked by everybody. You know, that part's still growing. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. And he just put his hands on my shoulders and he just said, there are things about you I don't like, but I love you and I like spending time with you. And it was one of the most profound, powerful, life-giving experiences I've ever had. It both filled in gaps and transformed wounds within me that was like, I can be okay if somebody doesn't like all the pieces of me. I'm still lovable.
Mm.
I have just taken that with me and really find it like a personal mission of mine to stop telling people, you're fine and I like everything about you. It's more powerful to be like, there are things about you that I don't prefer, but I adore you. Like, it's so healing and so gives permission for everybody to be their own unique self on their journey. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, what a powerful illustration of a life-giving experience. Right? An encounter of love where you have grace and you have truth.
Yes.
Scott didn't tell you something that wasn't true.
Yes. He didn't hold back.
Oh no, there's everything. There's nothing about you that I just like. Wasn't been true.
Yeah.
None. But what was true was that in spite of
Yes.
there being things that are not his favorite things about you, that he didn't like, that he loves you, that he enjoys spending time with you, that glad to be with you joy, that both of those can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's this context of you felt and knew Scott's love.
Yeah.
So there's this context of love that's there, right?
Yeah, there was a trust already, a knowing of safety.
Right, in which that truth is able to be taken in that context. There's something regular. You felt safe with Scott. You felt safe in his love for you. In that regulating state of secure connection that you had with him, that gave you the courage to have that conversation with him in the first place, was then what enabled that truth to be able to be received in a way that was transforming for you. Grace precedes truth. And we're going to unpack that some more in our next episode, actually. We're really going to dive deep into the scriptures and dive deep into the neuroscience around how those experiences happen and why they transform the way that they do. So let's recap. We can't self-help our way out of anxiety or trauma. And hopefully by now, in this episode, you understand why that is. And that the fake joy that we reach for, the fine, everything's fine, I'm fine, masks, the things that we use to distract ourselves from our pain, our anxiety, our unhappiness, that those things become blocks to us actually having the life-giving experiences that we need that fill in the gaps for us with transforming our mind with new learning that we haven't had before, or the transformational experiences that rewire old learning and bring it in line with truth. Like those happen through interactive experiences of grace and truth, loving encounters, life-giving experiences with other humans that make that possible. It's hopeful. God has made a way forward for us, no matter what our experience of life has been, no matter what we've missed, no matter what's happened that shouldn't have happened. God has made provision for your healing and for your growth so that you can mature into the fullness of who He created you to be, because it matters so much to Him that you would. And He wants that so much for you. And we want that for you too. Hey friend, thanks for hanging out with us. If you've learned something, please subscribe and share it with somebody you love. You'll probably also like some of the other videos that we have, and so we'll link to those around here. Check them out and we'll keep learning together. And remember, Jesus wants you to live an abundant life, to mature into your true self, like the version of you that He created you to be and that He wants you to mature into, so that you can experience true happiness in Him, a life characterized by peace, joy, and hope. And we're here cheering you on as you mature into your true self and experience true happiness. We love you, and we'll see you down the road.